Hey guys, a very warm welcome back to a brand new video of ours. जिस वीडियो में आज हम डिस्कस करेंगे all about
failure.
no, not that kind of failure, but here we'll be talking about muscular failure. So before we get into the fact कि failure exactly किस काम के लिए use होता है and what implications it has on our training protocols, let us first understand what muscular failure is. So as per the definition, muscular failure एक ऐसा situation होता है जहाँ पे आपका skeletal muscles can no longer produce the necessary force to lift that weight effectively and safely. So these two words are very, very important because if you compromise on either of them, you can risk yourself not only of injuries, but your repetition or the benefits you will get from each of the repetition will also go down the drain. So in order to understand failure better, let us break down failure into three separate parts as you can see on the screen. So the very first part that we have is what we call as the tempo failure. That can be said as the first stage of muscular failure. So जिन लोगों को पता नहीं है कि tempo क्या चीज़ होता है exercise world में, so there is a very, very simple breakdown that I have for you.
जोर से बोल के लोगों को स्कीमें बता दे.
So as you can see on the screen, these numbers 1, 0, 1, 0. So adding it all up, it comes to 2 seconds. So this entirety of 2 seconds is the total number of time you're spending per repetition of that exercise. And now let us understand what these numbers stand for. Let us take the example of an exercise like the bench press. So bench press में एकदम first जो number होता है, that denotes the time when you're going down with the weight, which happens to be the eccentric phase. So essentially you're taking just 1 second to go all the way down. Then the second number is 0, which means there is no pause at the bottom. आप बिना pause के directly आप concentric phase में चले जा रहे हो. Or again, that brings us to the third number, which is again 1. So it means the concentric phase is also lasting just for 1 second. And again at the top, you are holding for literally 0 seconds. So it's a continuous eccentric and concentric movement. Hence the tempo is 1, 0, 1, 0. Now ये same example अगर हम एक के बजाय दो use करते, so that would essentially mean I'm taking 2 seconds down through the eccentric movements and again 2 seconds up through the eccentric movement. So to drive this point home even further, let us change the examples to 2, 0, 2, 1, which essentially means you're taking 2 seconds in the eccentric part, you're holding for 0 seconds, again you're taking 2 seconds in the concentric part, and then you're pausing for 1 second. So that would give you a tempo of 2, 0, 2, 1. So effectively, as per the current scientific literature, अगर आप हर एक repetition को effective बनाना चाहते हो, the average tempo that is required or the average time taken to perform a single repetition can be anywhere between 1 second all the way up to 8 seconds. So this matters or changes a lot from individual to individual. तो in a sense, जब भी आप failure reach करोगे और जब भी आप इस tempo को थोड़ा changes आएगा, you will understand or you will notice कि the effectiveness through which you will go through the repetition deteriorates over time. एक basic rule of thumb that you can use कि अगर आपका basic tempo अगर total में 2 या 3 सेकंड का हो पूरा repetition complete करने में, and if that tempo increases by 100%, so essentially that 2 seconds become 4 seconds and that 3 seconds become 6 seconds, then that 100% increase in tempo can often be not as effective as your usual tempo. So that brings us to the second part of failure, that is form failure. And this is the part from where it starts getting very serious and you should be paying attention to this. So form failure is effectively a situation where you are no longer able to perform that movement with safe or effective form. Again, let's take the example of bicep curl. So the first stage, like I said, happens to be tempo. So if you're taking 2 seconds to complete a bicep curl, by increase in tempo, by 100%, you are now taking 4 seconds to complete the same, which is still okay because that is the first stage of failure. The next stage comes when you can no longer maintain a proper form and you have to jerk the weight up or you have to change your levers and lift the weight up. This is where you should be paying attention to whether or not this change in form or this compromise in form is worth it or not. And to simply put it in perspective, जब भी आप कोई आइसोलेशन एक्सरसाइज कर रहे हो या सिंगल जॉइंट मूवमेंट कर रहे हो या प्रेफरेबली कोई इक्विपमेंट के साथ काम कर रहे हो, then you can compromise to some degree understanding your own limitations. But whenever it is more heavier exercises such as compound lifts like bench press, squat, deadlift, high chances are that that compromise in form is not going to be worth the while. So जब भी फॉर्म कॉम्प्रोमाइज करके आपको रेपिटेशन इंक्रीज करने का दरकार पड़ता है, you can use this as a reference or a tool which will help you judge whether that extra repetition towards failure is worth it or not. So that brings us to the third and final point, that is absolute failure. और absolute failure एक ऐसा situation है जहाँ पे आप जो भी कोशिश कर लो, जितना भी ट्राई करो, जितना भी फॉर्म कॉम्प्रोमाइज करो, आप तब भी वेट लिफ्ट नहीं कर पाते हो.
बेटा, तुमसे ना हो पाएगा.
That is, your muscles cannot produce the necessary force at all, even to lift the weight to a significant level. उसको कहा जाता है absolute failure. Now, having understood what are the stages of failure, what you can do to improve your training whenever it comes to gaining muscle mass or when it comes to improving your strength, is that you have to understand when and how to use failure. So like I usually tell all my clients, failure is nothing but just a tool that you can occasionally use to boost up your exercise. Meaning, अगर आप एक ऐसा individual हो जो हर एक set में failures तक जाते हो, there is very high chances that your body is not going to recover, specifically if you're a natural athlete. Because just like workout, the body needs equivalent if not more amount of rest in order to recover from that workout. So हर एक repetition, हर एक exercise में, हर एक set में अगर आप failure hit करते जा रहे हो over and over again, this accumulation of stress is not going to help your muscles recover properly. So that is one of the reasons why failure should not always be used in each and every set. Having said that, now आपका question आएगा कि फिर कब use करना है failure, कब काम में आएगा, कब हम लोग का muscle gaining potential increase होगा और कब जाके strength building potential increase होगा. And now to give you a satisfactory answer regarding that, let us look into the studies that have been conducted throughout 2015 all the way till 2019. And यहाँ पे you can see there is a concept that was formalized known as effective repetitions. और ये effective repetitions का concept बहुत simple है. It states that whenever you are performing a set of any exercise, the last few repetitions are the repetition that causes your muscles to adapt. यानी ये last 4 से 5 जो repetition होता है, यही repetition आपको hypertrophy या strength stimulate करने में help करता है. Now, this, like I said, is just another theory where scientific studies are still pending, but there are definitely more positives than negatives about this theory. So, in order to understand the concept of effective repetitions better, let us take the example of a set of exercise जहाँ पे आप 10 repetitions दे रहे हो. So, अगर आप 10 repetition till failure जा रहे हो, आपका 6th repetition onwards, यानी आपका 6th, आपका 7th, आपका 8th, आपका 9th और आपका 10th repetition are gonna be your effective repetition. Similarly, अगर आप 30 repetitions जा रहे हो, that is a very high repetitive set, वहाँ पे जाके your 25th repetition onwards all the way till 30th, that is gonna be your effective repetition. So that is why whenever you are taking a weight which will enable you to do such high repetition, if you stop at say 15 or 20, maybe because you're feeling bored or maybe because you're completely tired, that will be considered as something known as junk volume.
क्या बात है, गांव में जट है हमारी, समझ में नहीं आता क्या क्या ड्रामा कर रखा है.
तो यानी ये सब एनालाइज करके I can safely recommend कि if you have to hit failure properly, try to hit failure in stages and utilize these stages to your advantage. For example, I'll make this very simple, that if you're dealing with compound movements like squat, bench press, deadlift, etc., maybe take a load wherein you cannot do more than 6 to 8 repetition and try to reach 2 or 3 repetition before failure, which essentially is known as RIR, that is reps in reserve. So now coming to the final part of this video, that is how often you should push till failure. So इसका कोई एक आंसर नहीं होगा and you have already realized it by now, because failure itself is broken into parts. So now taking everything into picture, we can safely say that you obviously can experiment much more with tempo failure and form failure as compared to absolute failure. Because like I said, हर एक सेट में अगर आप absolute failure तक push करते हो, then your body won't have the necessary means to recover from that workout to sustain further workouts. And as you know by now, एक single day का workout is not that big of a picture if you look at it in a weekly or even a monthly basis volume. So volume as in आपका total week में कितना set, कितने effective set और effective repetition आप एक exercise का करते हो, that plays an even more important factor than whether you are pushing each and every set till failure. And now that you know what effective repetitions are, you also can refer to this video linked right above to understand what RIR and RPE stands for and how you can use it in your strength training purposes. So now coming back to the topic, tempo failure and form failure can be utilized in a lot of exercises which are isolation in nature. For example, you can use it to train your biceps, your triceps, to some degree a part of your delts, and other exercises which are usually equipment based and less risky to perform. At the same time, with exercises such as compound lifts like your deadlift, your squat, your bench, you are better off stopping at just tempo failure.
तो साला ये दुख का खत्म नहीं होता बे.
Because if you push these exercises too far without proper spotter or without someone to look at your form, then there is high chance of risk that is associated with such exercises. Now, having discussed the qualitative terms of things, when it comes to the actual numbers, I would suggest that for a single body part, choose 2 to 3 exercises, preferably isolation exercises that you can push till failure per week. Anything beyond that would usually push the envelope too much, especially for advanced or intermediate lifters. So having said that, guys, I really hope this video made some sense to you, and if it did, and if you are able to incorporate all this knowledge in your workout, do give it a thumbs up and also subscribe to our channel. This is your coach Promit Shome signing off for the week. See you all again next week with another cool video. So the third and final point of this discussion, that is sleep hygiene. So in order to understand sleep hygiene, एक बहुत simple analogy आपको देते हैं. Just like you maintain your own hygiene, you take a bath every day, I assume, you brush every day, you prepare yourself for a heavy workout when it's necessary. So just like that, sleep hygiene is nothing but preparing yourself out for a good night's sleep.